Okay, I'm excited. This is a fun part. It's about the actual teaching at each stage. And I'm going to try to get as many details as I can compacted into each one of these stages for you. And then just to give you an idea of the way that it's organized and set up, and you can also see that from the teaching module, and that is I'm going to go through each stage of homeschooling to give you an idea about what to teach and how long to teach it. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about some lesson planning too. So I'm going to keep each one of these stages to teaching tips. This first one is about pre-K to kindergarten. And you know, I explained to you how when I first started teaching my first son, my first child, that I put a lot of pressure on myself and him. And we tend to do this when we're new homeschoolers and it's our first and they're young. You know, we're afraid of messing them up for life. I'll admit it. I was confident, but then I wasn't. Some days I could leap hurdles and mountains, and other days I felt like, oh, someone come pull me out of here. And all those feelings are very normal. But what I want to do is I want to empower you to be in the know. I want to explain the teaching process. If you get a good picture of it, I always like doing bird's eye view of things. Then I'll know where I'm going. I'll know, okay, that's the direction I'm going. This is a rule of thumb about what a child may need to know at these ages. And that's another thing too. When I explain these things to you, I don't want you to get stressed saying, oh, my child's not there yet. Because unless a child has special needs, he'll get there, he'll develop, he'll grow, he'll mature, it'll be okay, he will, unless there's some hindrance. What you need to do is create the environment, be there for him to guide him, and then as he gets older, then follow his lead. Follow his lead. Okay, right now at these stages though, these are such important stages for pre-K to kindergarten because they're so foundational. And let me explain something else too about the teaching world. And it's also in the homeschool world too, okay? You need to understand these two ideologies so you'll know where you are along the lines of them, because my goal, like I said before, is to explain to you so you can kind of pick what's best for your family. For many years, the educational world has touted the earlier is better for a child to learn. But what also is very important at these ages is development. A lot of times standards are assigned to children this age. This child at 6th grade is in 1st grade, 3, 4 is kindergarten, and they just go through all these different assigning ages to grades and standards. And kids don't develop that way. They don't develop like that. And so I don't want you to start your journey off thinking, okay, my child's behind or I'm not doing enough. If you know what's coming up in the next grade levels or what subjects, then you can look ahead and say, oh, okay, well, we're just fine. He's going to be there or she's going to be there. We're doing just fine. So the ideologies in the educational world is that we need to make learning more structured. And then you have the opposing side that says we need to learn through play. Now, I do happen to fall with the learning through play because I've experienced the same thing with my children. And I do have a child that is gifted and talented. It was very hard to teach him. Now, I didn't have the others tested just because I didn't need to do that. But sometimes they have a huge appetite for learning. And sometimes I'll hear moms say, well, you know, she wants to do another worksheet. Well, again, I've said before, that may be the only thing she knows of. There's nothing wrong with a worksheet. And some children are gifted and they can move ahead, and they're several years ahead in their development. But what I'm talking about is just the norm, the rule of thumb. Okay, so you know your child best. If they are ready and they're in preschool or kindergarten and they're ready for 3rd or 4th grade work, then by all means do that. But just remember, my one tip for that is you can always lengthen and go out sideways instead of go up. Because the problem when you go up on curriculum is that the child's development, their maturity level doesn't go up. Their maturity is for a child that's pre-K or kindergarten. They like to play. They like to do these things and explore and learn. So sometimes it's better to dive deeper instead of going up and give them more work to do, which is what the public school does. It's what they told me about my son who's in kindergarten. Oh, well, he's gifted and talented. We're going to move him up a grade. Well, I couldn't see how being with older kids was going to benefit him. He needs to be able to go at his pace, because in so many ways, like a lot of gifted and talented kids are twice exceptional, is they're not developed evenly across the board. They're very high in some areas and they lag behind in other areas, maybe social issues. They're very high in academic issues, but they have these sensory or social issues. So I've always found it's better to stay on level and dive deep. And this is the same concept really with teaching pre-K or kindergarten. Because at these stages and these ages, children are really learning with every breath they take. What you do at these ages and stages really sets the tone, if you will, for how they'll learn later. If there's too much structure, you can burn a child out by second grade and have a resistant learner. They're not interested anymore in learning. Or perhaps you can do like I did. I sent him to school in kindergarten where he loved reading. When he came back, it took the whole year to get him to love reading again. And why? Why was that? Because reading was done X number of minutes at this time of the day, regardless of if the child felt like it or not. Yeah, I'm paused for a minute for a reason. Think about what I just said. At this age and stage, you're following the lead of the child. What's a rule of thumb? 15 minutes. 15 minutes, they're interested in what you're doing and they're on to something else. Now, what you do during this time is you gradually lengthen that in pre-K to the end of kindergarten till about an hour and a half of formal learning the core subjects. That's the key. Sometimes I'll tell moms, they'll ask me, how long does it take to teach kindergarten? Oh, about an hour, hour and a half. They're shocked. They've gone 8 hours. But see, they didn't hear me. They heard, but did they really hear? Formal part of it. That's right. Just the core subjects, math, language arts, phonics. It doesn't mean that's all the learning they do for the day. You and I both know kids can play the whole day. What you want to do is incorporate learning into their play. That's the key for learning every day. But because math and language arts has to be taught in a sequence, that's your focus every day. It's better to do a little bit each day than it is don't do anything for 3 or 4 days and come back to it and try to make up in one day. It ain't going to happen, not at this age. We can turn a kid off from learning. What you do right now is so very important. Make learning fun. Okay, let me just explain this to you. I don't feel like I was a very fun teacher when I first started. I'd rather just give him a worksheet and he can trace a bunch of bees. I don't feel like I was very creative. I've come a long way from that time because I made myself be the type of teacher I want to learn from. Are you the type of teacher your kid wants to learn from? Are you the type? Can you get down there and do fun things? Can you turn on music? Can you dance with them? Can you do crafts? Do you go to the park? Do you sing the ABCs and learn the sounds, learn your numbers in a natural way? How can we do this? Every day, the child can set the table, one-to-one correspondence, build Legos. They can do the Lori puzzles. When we turn off the device, and I do feel you have to have a control to the device time, especially at this age. Kids early on learn, I have to have my fix of it. And here's something I want to share with you. I've homeschooled at both when we didn't have as much and when we came into the device era. So, and I'm here to tell you, many times it is easier when there was no devices. Okay, but I wouldn't go back to that time because we had to put DVDs in. And I love the abundance of information we have on apps and tablets and so many wonderful ways kids can learn. But unless that is limited, they can't have that quiet time to be bored and to think, what can I get into? What can I learn? What does it allow me to do? Can I play a board game with mom? Can I play a board game with my siblings? Can I create something? Can I work on puzzles? Can I do Play-Doh? all of those things build fine motor skills and gross motor skills. Okay, and so here's the thing about preschool. Do you know why it's called preschool? It's called preschool because it's pre-math, pre-writing, pre-reading. How can we teach our kids at the preschool level without sticking a pencil in their hand? I dare you. That's what you need to do. How can I teach them how to read or write without sticking a pen or pencil in their hand? They don't have control over their fine motor skills until about halfway through first grade. That's why I encourage you to start cursive writing if you want to teach them to write. But until that time, I heard an analogy one time and it stuck with me my whole life. I couldn't believe it. When I was trying to get my children at that age to write on a line, you can introduce the lines, but don't make it a big deal because you're trying to teach them this is the top, we pull down to do a letter, we read from left to right. They said writing at the pre-K and kindergarten age is like writing with your big toe. Why don't you try it sometime? That analogy stuck with me for a long time. And I realized I wasn't trying to stick a pen in their hand. I was trying to get them ready to stick a pen in their hand. I'm getting them ready to do math. How can I do that? There's numbers all around. There's patterns. There's patterns in nature. Is that an A-A-B-B pattern? A-B-A-B? How about the nursery rhymes of times past? They're not just fun pastime for kids. They really have a lot of weight because when a child can hear the sounds, the two sounds are similar, then they know, you know what, those two sounds are similar. That converts to writing and to spelling. Yeah, when we sing Miss Mary, Mac, 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 don't get me singing for you. All dressed in what? Black, black, black. You see, you're stressing Mac, 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 black, black, black. Part of the day in kindergarten and in preschool is listening to music, is singing the ABCs, is singing the days of the weeks. Kids are learning. Shove it all in there. Shove it all in there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all the counting, all the puzzles, nursery rhymes, even rebus sentences. I started with rebus sentences. What are rebus sentences? Those are sentences that are half words and half pictures, because then that a child says, I'm reading. I took index cards and I put one word on I can, and then I actually took pictures of my kids doing this, which they really loved. And I had each one of them, they're reading a book on the couch, and I put a picture of them on the card. Of course, they love that because it's, you know, they see themselves on the picture. And I have 3 index cards. I can read. Woo! They're reading now. That's the beginning. Those are rebus sentences, half pictures, half reading. Creative ways. How can you teach them to read without writing? Because here's the point at those ages. So many educators want to stick pens in their hands and not realize they don't have those skills. Not all skills are connected, or they want to tie reading to writing. Reading and writing are tied together, but not at this age, because a child, even at kindergarten level, can be reading chapter books, and even higher. They can be in 5th, 6th grade reading level. Yes, they can, but they might not be able to write a letter. Their writing's down here. It eventually catches up. But when we always tie reading into writing, a child can stay behind. They don't want to do writing. So how can you teach a subject without writing? How can you teach them math without making them do 4 plus 4? That's what you're doing at this age. You're getting them ready to learn at preschool. Preschool. Readiness. Sounds of letters, identifications of letters, up, over, down, beside, concepts. You're teaching them everything in day to day. And for pre-K, it really is just about 15 minutes, and then they want to go do something else. Now, does it mean you only have to teach them 15 minutes? No. If they're sitting there and you have their rapt attention, go for it. Just keep going, because you never know. The newborn could cry. You have to get up and do something else. But here's the rule of thumb. These kids get your first in the day. You have a scheduler, and it's your toddler, or it's your newborn. I know you have this beautiful schedule you may want to follow, but you're going to have to follow your scheduler. For me, that meant my household would be up early because all my kids were little. I had a newborn, I had a toddler, I had one beginning to read. They were up at 5 o'clock ready to go. Then the other ones would follow behind them. They'd probably be up at 6:30. A few minutes of breakfast, and guess what? They were ready to sit down about 7 to do school. I wasn't ready. I'd like to have a little bit slower morning, but I seized the moment because I knew if I spent an hour or an hour and a half with them, that the baby was going to go back down again for his nap at 9 or 10. I could get some of my housework done then. But the mistake at these ages is that moms who have kids that are older, they think they have to give the older one attention first, and it's just the opposite. You have a short window of time, not for learning, but for their attention before they're tired. And even working moms will say, well, I got to do this, I got to do this. And some things you can't help. But if you can help it, because I work too, I ran a business, and I shine in the morning. I know I'm crazy, but I am a morning person. That is my time. But that's not when I did my work. I would have preferred to do my work then, but that's the time I did school because I made sure I got it in for the day. I gave it first. You do everything else and you say, okay, we're going to sit down now. And in the afternoon, late evening, forget it. Kids are tired. They're not interested unless that is your routine. I have friends whose husband worked shift work. They had a completely different routine than I did. They started their school day at 1. That was their first in the day. That's completely fine. Each family is different. That's the beauty of homeschooling, to be flexible. The point I'm making of all of this is they need your first in the day whenever it is, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon. They need your first. The older kids can keep themselves entertained until you give the younger ones your attention first. And if you don't do that, you watch, because this is what I learned. When I was trying to teach my oldest one, I wanted my toddler to go off and do something. I gave him something to entertain himself. Of course, you know, I had to go back and check on him because sometimes he was too quiet. But what I realized is he didn't want to do that. He would come and sit down on my lap. He put his foot up in my face. I was trying to teach the other one how to read. I thought, what is this? He knew. They're pretty smart. So I thought, you know what? I'll just include him in the day. So we started school. We sat down. I got him in my lap like I was giving him attention first. As soon as he got attention and he did some things to keep him occupied, guess what? He was off. He didn't care that I was going to sit down there with my oldest one. So that's what I'm saying. Give the youngest ones your attention first. Toddler, pre-K, kindergarten, they get your first one-to-one in the morning. Something else I did to help when I was teaching all of them, and it really was a lifesaver for me. And of course, they have a lot more now, and since Pinterest, they have so many ideas. But at that time, you know, we didn't have the ideas. But what I did was I got these huge Ziploc bags, and I made like 30 or 40 activity bags. And I put everything in them to keep my preschooler busy while I taught my kindergarten child how to read. And I didn't put him where he could reach him. I put him up in the top of the closet, and I would pull one down. And I could set him on my lap, and he could mess with whatever activity was in there, and he could kind of learn while I'm still directing my attention to the oldest. I took time to do that, and it was the best time I ever spent. What could go in these Ziploc bags? I love stickers because they take a long time for them to peel, and they're working fine motor skills. Stickers, dots, tracing, yarn, where they sew with the yarn, how to tie a shoestring. I just got a piece of cardboard from a shoebox and put some holes in it, put a shoestring in it, put some smiley faces, and they're sitting there trying to tie. The whole key to these bags, though, is to be sure you have everything you need in it. Scissors, glue, everything. You don't want to have to get up. When you're in the middle of teaching one and you've got your oldest kid's attention and he's learning, grab that activity bag, set back down, open it up, and everything right there, you can help him or he can dig in it. Glue, crafts, popsicle sticks, rebus sentences, matching numbers. Mine always love stickers. And each bag is something different. And something else I did, I got with another mom that had kids my age. I made 30, she made 30, and then one time we made 60 and we switched them. She gave me 30 of hers and I gave her 30 of mine. It was the best thing ever. And those little bitty toys that get in the bottom of their toy box, you can use those to glue. I got big cardboard letters that were on sale. I think it was at Hobby Lobby, huge letters. And I had all kinds of toys in front of him. And he could glue the little animals or little toys onto into the letter. And I would say the sound with him as he glued the toy onto the letter. Of course, he loved playing with the toys and he was learning. And I could do that because my hands were, were free basically. Were right there. I grabbed the bag and sat down. I didn't have to get up again because I took time to organize all of that. Now they call them activity bags, busy bags. They're worth making. Also, lamination sheets. I did those too. You can have them do their name, laminate it, and then write over and over, trace their name, shapes. Even there's websites online where they'll read them a story. They'll read them a story while you're teaching your oldest one. There's so many other things you can do. You're getting them ready to learn, and instead of pushing them aside, you're gathering them around you and you're including them, because then what happens if we push them aside so many times, then we're like, okay, well now they don't want to do school. Now it's time to formally start homeschooling, and they're not interested. Okay? So don't do that. Include them with you. Set them down, round at your feet, on the table. Have things for them to do too while you're teaching your oldest one. Okay. First in the day, math and language arts, the core subjects, and I have on the list what the core subjects are at this grade, which really is phonics, which is reading, and math is really what is at this stage. And then if they're in pre-K, you're teaching them how to strengthen their fine motor skills to prepare them to write. Tweezers, drawing, gluing, dots, stickers, all those things teach them. And you keep those fine motor skills up even into kindergarten. Crafts, this is the way that kids learn best. About an hour and a half for kindergarten, and then for pre-K, about 15 minutes spread throughout the day. But remember, that's not your whole teaching day. That's just the formal part of getting in the core curriculum. Okay, I'll share some more as we go along.